Welcome to the August 8th, 2024 meeting of the Decatur Architectural Review Board. I will call roll with each commission member answering present. Ellis Chenault.
Present.
Barbara Kelly.
Present.
Patrick Rasco.
Present.
Michael Rogers.
Present.
I'm Jacob Woods, the board chair, and we have a quorum present. Dr. Swope is the city's preservation specialist. Thank you to everyone who is attending today. Your involvement in this commission's proceedings is vital to the effectiveness of this process. There's a copy of the agenda out front if you'd like one. Historic district designation means your neighborhoods have been recognized by the United States government, the state of Alabama, and the city of Decatur as being architecturally or historically significant to our community. Historic districts are not created to prevent changes, but rather to ensure that the proposed changes are appropriate to the individual property and the districts as a whole. The board's responsibility is to review the appropriateness of all the proposed changes. Each historic resource within the district is assessed on its own individual merits, which is what is appropriate for one property may not be appropriate for another based on resource age, location, neighboring properties, and stylistic details. The Architecture Review Board's rulings are based on written standards and regulations that guide our review and decision-making. These guidelines and the Commission's decisions have the force of city ordinance. You can access our guidelines along with application forms on the city's website. Our hearing process is as follows. Staff will present the application. When they read your name and property address, please be prepared to come to the podium. Staff will present the application and staff assessment of each request. When staff has finished presenting the application item, the applicant and/or designated representative will then state their name and address and provide any additional information or comments regarding that application item. The board may ask clarifying questions of the applicant at this time. Next, we will hear any public comments on this particular application item only. After public comment has closed, the chair will entertain a motion and the board will discuss and dispense of that application item. Staff will then proceed to the next application item and so forth. An approved certificate of appropriateness, or COA, will be issued in the form of an email that's copied both the applicant and the building department approximately 1 week after this hearing. The document will outline and reaffirm what was approved and that the project has been approved. A COA must be issued before a building permit can be obtained. If any changes to your project are anticipated after the COA is issued, it is the responsibility of the homeowner to contact staff and she will help guide you. In some cases, you may be required to submit the changes for review and issuance of a new COA. If your project is denied and you are not issued a COA, you'll be issued a letter stating the reason for denial and additional information. Denied COAs will be sent via certified mail to the property owner's address filed with the Morgan County Revenue Commissioner's Office. You may resubmit an application with revised plans at a future meeting. There is an appeal process for a denied COA as well, which is spelled out in the municipal ordinance under section 1825 and 1892. After all applications are heard, the commission will entertain general comments from the public limited to 3 minutes per an individual. All right, the first item of business today is the approval of the minutes from the July 11th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move that be approved as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Those are good. Next, we have expedited COAs from last month.
721 Ferry Street, which is a new roof. 813 Ferry Street, siding replacement on garage. 813 Ferry Street, new roof for garage. 813 Ferry Street, replaced porch ceiling. 422 Sherman Street, new porch fans, 412 Oak Street, new roof, and 637 Green Street, new roof. We have one COA on the agenda tonight. This is revisiting, we did an informal review of a possible driveway for 421 6th Avenue. So this is the actual COA that was refined based on discussion the last time this project was in. And so we talked about how, at one point there was a curb cut on 6th. That curb cut was due to go away with the 6th Avenue redevelopment plan, and it's going to be dangerous to come off it on 6th. There's no parking in front of the property. And so they are requesting adding a driveway that comes in off of Sherman. The design review standards, 19.0, parking driveways and sidewalks, 19.3, design parking to be unobtrusively located in the rear or side yard. On the side towards the parking area should be recessed beyond the midpoint of the side of the house, and that's impossible. This is sort of an unusual lot, unusual location. 19.4, minimize the width of the driveway to the extent possible. 19.7, screen and minimize the visual impact of parking areas in the rear or side yards with hedges, shrubs, and fences. 19.8, new driveways and curb cuts should not be constructed where they did not exist historically. 19.10, new curb cuts, driveways, and parking lots are typically not appropriate access from the street, particularly on streets that have ample street parking. So this is the plan of the house and where the proposed driveway is, and you can see it's about as close to the rear of the side lot as it can be made. This is approximately where it would go in. So we discussed 6th Avenue prevents parking in front of the house, so this house has substantially less parking accessibility than most houses in the neighborhood do. Mr. Duper had originally discussed parking on the north side of the property, access from the alley, but he feels like a driveway in Rudolph Sherman would be more appropriate. That driveway also accesses, alley also accesses 6, so if you have ever tried to turn off of that alley onto 6, particularly because at that point you're on a hill, it is a somewhat dangerous endeavor. The portion of the retaining wall would have to be removed to accomplish this, which would place the driveway close to the one at 446 Sherman. The proposed road and driveway and exposed aggregate material meets the standards required for other driveways that have been approved in the past. Allowing the driveway from Sherman due to the inability to park on 6 is in keeping with the driveway approved off of Gordon, because they had an inability to park in front of their house as well because of that street and the way it is designed. Did have a site visit with the commission chair to look at the retaining wall to see how we would handle. Use my little cursor so you can see it. This portion of the retaining wall would be removed here, so this would allow the driveway here. How to handle this area where the retaining wall stops, we looked at ending it right at this seam. This was a really good seam here that would be a good break point. And then grading the lot so that we don't need to continue additional retaining wall on this side, but that it would have a gentle slope instead. So that is what we proposed. Any questions?
That would be a ribbon driveway, right?
Yes. The ribbon driveway with exposed aggregate. So the ribbons are 2.5 feet wide with a 3-foot section between them.
I think it's good where he's got it located too, because it gives a little separation from the neighbor's drive, and so you don't look like two driveways right beside each other.
Don't run the risk of rubbing doors.
And, any questions?
I think from our previous discussion, after you park there, you would have a walkway or something to the porch to access the house.
Yes, sir.
Right. Does that,
That is not part of this proposal. He'll bring that in when he's ready to
Okay.
prepare that portion.
okay, good. I think it's good. I'll make the motion to approve as this has been presented, ribbon driveway.
And exposed aggregate in the concrete.
Yes.
And the exposed aggregate is in between the concrete?
Well, it's just in the concrete itself, so when you kind of wash it down, you
Right,
put it
right,
in,
right,
so you
right.
get that
Gotcha.
kind of exposed.
Gotcha.
Kind of like all the sidewalks. or-
Yep, yep.
Have you talked to the city yet about what they're going to do for you on the sidewalk?
Not yet, but I will before I make any, well, I mean, yeah.
Because there's a lot of cracks you got, and it'd be nice for them
Once
to,
this is approved, I was going to email the other city departments and let them know to start discussing it. So the motion,
And I second
is
it.
there a second? Yeah. Second, Barbara. Anything else? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
all right.
Good to go.
I'd like to see what we've done on this project yet. You can see the light. Thank you, Austin.
Yes, thank you.
I'll
Thank
be
you.
in it shortly and introduce you with other city departments. and start working on it.
Thank you.
The light at the end of the tunnel is getting a little brighter.
Yes, sir, thank you.
So before we finish, I promised I would give a brief report from the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. I attended they have a forum every 2 years. So 2 years ago, it was in Cincinnati. This year, it was at West Palm Beach because hotel rooms are cheap in West Palm Beach in August. And apparently that is time to do a conference. So I did a couple tours and I did a lot of sessions. I did a tour of Miami to take a look at Cuban neighborhood, which is what you see here, they're playing dominoes. So they were talking about heritage sites that aren't necessarily building related and how those are addressed. And so here you have a community that has long played dominoes as part of their cultural identity and how the city has accommodated that with set pavilions and places for that to occur. I didn't want you to think that we were the only city that, this is some of their designated neighborhoods and they still have challenges with demolition. And this is a portion where it's not under the preservation control and it's cheaper to tear down buildings and build two condos side by side, two like townhouses, and it doubles the value of the property. And so there's a lot of angst right now with this occurring and how that's changing their neighborhood. Some really interesting Art Deco architecture, which is striking theater but different from our Princess. Visited a historic African American cemetery and sort of was talking about their preservation efforts. This was interesting because I asked if they had vaults because the water level was high. If you've ever been to New Orleans, they have vaults because of the water. That's not the case here. They have vaults because it is culturally traditional for them. This graveyard was predominantly first used by people from the Bahamas. In the Bahamas, they have a tradition of using their graves in vaults because the soil is essentially pure rock. And they need a little bit of soil that is usable for agriculture. They do not have the luxury of using it for graves. And so they might go down a couple feet, but graves there have vaults. And so even though they're in an area where they don't have to have vaults, that cultural group brought that tradition with them. Because for them, that is what a cemetery looks like. That's how everyone puts the dead to rest. That's what they did here. And you can see they're very tightly spaced, which creates maintenance issues. The cemetery had been abandoned for some time, so we met with the new owners and sort of trying to work through some of the issues with vaults, and we saw several where the vaults had collapsed, and so then you have human remains there in view, and they have to find a way to address that. So they had some that had tarps over them. Got to visit the Hampton House, which is a historic African-American hotel that was in the Green Book. You might be familiar with the name. It featured prominently in the movie One Night in Miami, which is based on a real event in 1964 where Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, singer Sam Cooke, and football star Jim Brown were all staying here right after Muhammad Ali had attained a boxing victory. And so there are photos of them in this place. So this was a very high-end swank hotel that was designed, and it held a lot of the African-American performers that were performing in the Miami nightclubs, but that were not allowed to stay in these hotels. So this hotel hosted Nat King Cole, Jackie Robinson, Rita Franklin, Sammy Davis Jr., Dr. King. And we were even able to see some of the rooms that have been restored. So that was really interesting, sort of thinking on how they're showcasing this history. Did a walking tour one morning through some of the residential districts in West Palm Beach. This is one of them. Lots of craftsmen in Spanish style, sort of bungalows, very small houses. I will still say it's always nice to see other neighborhoods and how they work for the occupants, work for people that are going on historic tours. And then it's always nice to look at that and say, oh, that's your historic neighborhood, you need to come see ours. And so that was really interesting as well. And just so you know, I was working too. That is me. In one of the sessions, you'll see Old State Bank up on the, we had a Saturday late afternoon. It was one of the last sessions, and to our surprise, it was very heavily attended. So I had a session where I brought in one of the grants managers for the National Park Service that manages historic grants for underrepresented communities. I had the State Preservation Officer for the state of Wisconsin on my panel. And there is a small town in Vermont that had been awarded one of these grants. I brought them in because they were doing some Native American work with their grant money. And then I had a consultant on the panel as well. And so we all showcased our projects, all of which are winners of grants for underrepresented communities. And so as you're aware, we were doing the grant with our underrepresented communities, being the women and the African American, and how other communities have used theirs too. And it was really well done in terms of the people that I was able to get on the stage. That was really exciting. And these are long. These sessions are about an hour and a half. And we ran the full hour and a half. I attended multiple sessions on integrity. So the National Park Service was speaking about the Secretary of the Interior standards, alternative materials, what they're seeing on the horizon, what is working, maybe what to watch out for. I attended sessions on historic context studies, substitute materials, working with consultants. A big one was legal issues for commissions. They had 4 preservation lawyers there, which might be like the greatest concentration I've ever seen. And one of the things that was repeatedly stressed were the sunshine laws and not having ex parte communications. Like they hammered that in repeatedly because that can create really big issues with public trust and potentially lawsuits, and that everyone needs to sort of stay very tightly in those lanes because it is a quasi-judicial system, which is very different from other aspects of city government. And so, for example, even the planning commission is not quasi-judicial. So it's BOZA, it's quasi-judicial, and you guys are quasi-judicial. So any decision that is made that an applicant is not comfortable with, it goes directly into the court system. That is it. So that is what makes it so unique, and that is what makes it, those standards really have to be held. I attended sessions on identifying underrepresented communities. A really interesting one on brownfields. So the EPA has a lot of money for environmental cleanup, but that can pair with historic sites because environmental cleanup can be asbestos, lead paint. Also, in some abandoned sites, if there's a lot of animal waste, like bird waste, that's an environmental hazard. EPA money can be used for that. So that I had never really thought about that aspect of it, but the EPA has a lot more money for their grants than the preservation program has in theirs. So sometimes people are using both, and they're using the EPA for the environmental aspect of the preservation project and the preservation grants for the rebuilding portions of it. And then I did a session on sort of fun outreach for commissions, different ways to involve the public. The next one in 2026 is in Minneapolis. Definitely encourage when that one is ready to run. I will let everyone know. We certainly bring NNPC trainers here, and some of you have sat through their sessions either virtually or in person. But imagine what it was like if you had all day, part of Wednesday, all day Thursday, all day Friday, all day Saturday, and part of Sunday to pick from 40 different sessions and walking tours. And so one night I went out for dinner with my counterpart in Birmingham, my counterpart in Huntsville, and 2 of my counterparts in Mobile, and we had a 4-hour working dinner where it was just like, what do you have in your town? How is your code? Because they have different ordinances. Their ordinances are not always the same as ours, Birmingham is a very complex system for design review that's neighborhood-based. They have multiple channels that it goes through. So it's always just really interesting to hear how other communities, because many of them have the exact same challenges, but their legal framework could be different, their council could be different, their monetary issues could be different, and their size could be different, and then how all of those go in to impact the final result and how to work on that. So it was really interesting. I'm tired. It was a long, I mean, I was running at 8 a.m. and one night I didn't finish until 1 in the morning because it was just so much trying to touch base. And I was supposed to fly back, but thanks to the hurricane, that didn't happen. And since I had to be here Monday, I drove back. So I got a rental car and spent 12 hours trying to leave Thailand to Florida on Sunday. So that was unplanned detour through like a toll road that has nothing along it for like 8 hours. There's nothing. It's green. It's green. I actually didn't realize that large parts of Florida were that undeveloped in the center of the state, but it was billboards and whatever. So hopefully that I won't do that in Minneapolis. We don't really drive to Minneapolis. It's a long drive. So any questions?
Any historic parks or anything like that they discussed?
No, I did see when we were going to Miami, they have, I don't know if it's a historic park, but it's a park on a riverbank that I took pictures of it thinking of the money that's going into Brooks Ferry, which looked fairly similar because they had industrial things across, and parks that are urban that have a lot of eyes on them are going to be handled differently than a park that maybe across the street, across the river has an industrial site. Because the number of eyes you have on a space impacts how it's designed. And so that was interesting. I took pictures of that for Danielle and have her reach out to them to see if they had any lessons learned.
Did they have a trail, like our bike trail? Was there a trail connecting it?
I don't know if we didn't come into the park. We were driving by it.
Are you planning to have a camp or any training for us before the end of the
I
year?
requested in the fiscal year 2025 budget money for training, and I will know hopefully at the end of this month what we have to work with. I already have some training. I reached out to a trainer in Annapolis to see if he had availability, and we'll definitely have a recap on design review as well. So I'm just waiting to hear what the final budget is, and then we'll probably set something up. I guess would be in late October if that's possible, because it's before the holiday season. If it works. But I need to see what the budget is yet. We don't have a final budget yet.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else from anybody?
This is the shortest meeting in history. I have to go brag to John Broadway about it.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Patrick?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's it.